Modern Day Heroes Unit Plan for EDUC673. Our Modern Day Heroes 8th grade theme was selected with an understanding that many middle school age students are interested in heroes. Whether they are comic book superheroes such as Wonder Woman or Captain America, heroic animals that save people, or people in history or modern day that have acted heroically. The unit topic has many opportunities to engage students and keep them interested, and can be used in all 4 of our content area classrooms. The unit topic also provides ample opportunity to incorporate character education within the curriculum as a way to encourage students to consider how they fit into the role of hero. Our whole unit general goals. Within math, students will create comic books that describe the inverse order of operations ability to solve a multi-step equation by getting a variable to be isolated on one side of the equation. Students will also look at a data chart of superheroes and their abilities, which are listed as data entries and as equations. Students will be able to solve the equations to determine which hero is the best in each data field. Students will also solve inequalities about superheroes and then look back at certain inequalities to the data chart to see if the inequality is true or not. Within ELA, students will study the hero archetype as it has developed from Greek literature to modern-day literacies. Students will develop an understanding of what heroes are today in both fiction and nonfiction book study, and will apply that knowledge to identify and communicate how they can be a hero themselves.
For science, the overall goal for the students to be able to achieve by the end of the unit revolves around the physical and chemical properties and changes of pure substances. The students will be able to explore this aspect of matter by learning many new key concepts such as luster, malleability, melting, and bonding. The students will also learn about the law of conservation of mass and the importance of this law in chemical reactions.
The thematic unit of everyday heroes, which includes superheroes and just your everyday common man who does super things, is very applicable to all the fields, including math, which is what I'm going to go into now. The Virginia Standards of Learning that will be covered during this unit are patterns, functions, and algebra. The standards under that unit that I want to look at is 8.17. The students will solve multi-step linear equations in one variable with the variable on one or both sides of the equation, including practical problems that require the solution of a multi-step linear equation in one variable. And 8.18. The student will solve multi-step linear inequalities in one variable with the variable on one or both sides of the inequality symbol, including practical problems, and graph the solution on a number line. So that's really wordy. What does that really mean? It's basically boiled down to 3 different things. We're going to solve multi-step linear equations. We're going to solve multi-step inequalities. And we're also going to graph their values of those solutions. Some key words that we're going to look at during this unit is equation, inequality, variable, the distributive property, order of operations, inverse order of operations, like terms, constant, and solution. So I'm going to talk to you about a few activities that I've put together that would fit well in this type of unit. The first one that I came up with was a comic book activity. Students will be asked to build a comic book or maybe even a short film using their drawings and things like that. Be as creative as they want to. The comic book has to have panels, just like a comic book, and it's going to explain the superpower or of the order of operations, as that's one of the main concepts that you have to learn to be able to solve multi-step equations. So we'll look at that order of operation, the inverse order of operations, and how those superpowers can defeat a 2-step equation to find the value of a variable that an equation has taken captive. The next thing we're going to look at is basic concepts of superpowers. People who like comic books and superheroes will often ask which superhero is the best. Okay, the question about who is faster, Superman or Flash, comes up all the time. So one activity that the students will be asked to complete, and this will of course come after the order of operations, inverse order of operations, and a few examples of multi-step equations being given. But they'll be given a chart that has all of these different superheroes. And the students will be asked to find the missing variable in each one of these equations. Some of the values are listed, some of them aren't, and some of them just are multi-step equations where the students have to solve for x. Once they find that x, that is their value that goes in that particular cell. So then you might see that Superman can have a punching power of 50 newtons. And then you might find out that Spider-Man has the punching power of 30 newtons. And then you would look and say, okay, which superhero has the stronger punching ability? And the students would be asked to fill in the bottom row there. And those that have the correct responses will be rewarded in some way. And then next we're looking at inequalities. We're going to be looking at different inequalities about superheroes and their abilities, and just to find out, okay, are these things true based on our previous data sheets that we filled out, or are they false? So we're going to go through these inequalities. They'll find answers for those inequalities, and we're going to use the Math is Fun site to try to help us get there with those answers. So we can travel over to the Math is Fun site, and we'll kind of go through that website as a tool to get us to where we want to be in our learning. And then after we have gotten the concept of the inequalities down, when we get into a separate class, we may be looking at, okay, what does it mean to actually graph these values? And one of the activities that I thought that would go good with this would be something maybe like a team-up activity. Because the superheroes are often seen in movies as being teamed up together in like the Avengers, X-Men, Justice League, things like that, and they have a story. So I thought maybe we could have a station activity, one where you would have two separate cards, one that showed a value of a variable and a number line. And the students would be asked, okay, after you found that solution, can you go find the two characters that match up and would be valid solutions for the variable, as in x is less than or equal to 3, and you would have Batgirl. And can you also find that number line that matches this one that is on the Wolverine card? And then those two heroes would match up, and maybe your group could come up with a neat little story for that those two characters. And then after we get done with that, we have a pretty good concept of what it's going to look like to be able to go through the Virginia Standards of Learning 8.17 and 8.18, and then also maybe be able to create some short stories or something like that that could go for a literature class as well.
Within this Modern Day Heroes unit study, the first thing we did in the ELA section was to identify some specific objectives for our students. They are to identify the 9 hero archetype characteristics. Students will compare the hero archetype to real-life modern-day heroes and identify 3 differences. They will compare the hero archetype to a nonfiction book subject and provide textual evidence supported by additional research as to if the real-life person would be considered a hero. They will create an original, believable graphic novel story that includes a hero and uses all the literary elements to tell the story. And finally, they will complete a final creative or written project identifying the 5 ways in which they as themselves can personally be a hero. Some of the state standards that we'll cover in this unit are 8.2, that the student will develop and deliver multimodal interactive presentations collaboratively and individually. 8.6, that the student will read, comprehend, and analyze a variety of nonfiction texts. 8.7, that the student will write in a variety of forms to include narrative, expository, persuasive, and reflective, with an emphasis on expository and persuasive writing. And 8.9, the student will find, evaluate, select, and synthesize appropriate resources to produce a research project. The ELA national standards that will be covered in this unit are that students will read a wide range of print and non-print texts to build an understanding of texts, of themselves, and of the cultures of the United States and the world. Among these texts are fiction and nonfiction, classic and contemporary works. Students will use a variety of technological and information resources to gather and synthesize information and to create and communicate knowledge. Students will participate as knowledgeable, reflective, creative, and critical members of a variety of literary communities, and students will employ a wide range of strategies as they write and use different writing process elements appropriately to communicate with different audiences for a variety of purposes. Some of the ELA key concepts that we'll cover in this unit include the hero character archetype, Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung, Greek literature, literary elements such as setting, plot, characterization, conflict, point of view, theme, and tone, nonfiction literature analysis, what literature circles are and the roles of the different members of a literature circle, using self-reflection, free writing, and literature bias. Within this unit, there's 4 larger activities that will have some activities within them, but we'll cover the 4 activities here. The first is the hero archetype. This is where students will read excerpts of Greek literature to identify the 9 different hero archetype characters. They'll then break into small groups and complete a graphic organizer to map out the characteristics, and each group will be assigned one of the characteristics to act out in a short skit in front of the class. This will take 1 class period. A second activity will be a literature circle. So students will go online and complete a survey to identify which of the 7 books that they will read in a literature circle. This way they aren't trying to just be with a friend, and they'll hopefully be reading something that they're actually interested in. So once they're assigned their nonfiction novel, they will be expected to complete readings both as a group and independently, and there will be a lot of different activities that they do together or alone in order to better understand the book that they're reading and look at how it connects with their hero archetype that we've been studying. So students will provide textual evidence and additional research of events from their novel to determine if their subject is a hero. This will last 5.5 class periods. The third activity that they will be completing will be a graphic novel study, which is exciting because a lot of students, I think, really enjoy graphic novel or would enjoy graphic novels. It opens up, to students who maybe don't like to read a full novel, to teach them that there's positives in reading any type of literature. So we'll look at it together and identify how the same literary elements that are used in traditional literature are depicting heroes in the graphic novel. Students will actually create their own graphic novel short story. They can either draw it or use computer illustrations, and these stories will include a hero and all of the literary elements that we've studied. This will take 1.5 class periods. The final activity will be a self-reflection project, and it will be about being a hero. Students will be able to compile everything that they studied during the unit in a self-reflection on how they can personally be a hero. There will be a lot of freedom in this activity for students to decide how they want to present this information. They can do it as a multimedia presentation or a 5-paragraph essay. They could do a collage of images, but everything will have a writing requirement. So all projects will identify 5 characteristics which they think they can personally follow in the modern day hero archetype. That concludes what we would do in our ELA segment of this unit, and I think students will be really excited about it.
The goals and objectives for science were created based on the Virginia Standards of Learning and the National Science Education Standards. The state standard that was used for this unit is PS3. Under the standard, students should be able to identify physical and chemical properties that pure substances can have, as well as comprehend the changes that these substances can undergo. The students should also be able to understand two of the main types of bonding, which are ionic and covalent. In addition, students will be able to learn how to balance chemical equations that occur when pure substances undergo bonding to create new compounds. In order for the students to understand why chemical equations have to be balanced in order to be accurate, the students will discover the law of conservation of mass and the scientist who discovered the law, Antoine Lavoisier. All of these concepts under the state standards overlap with the national standard. The national standard is for the students to explore properties and changes of properties in matter. The students will have many opportunities to explore and engage in this material. The specific learning objectives that the students will work towards encompass those national and state standards. The students will be able to identify physical and chemical properties of pure substances. They will also be able to craft predictions about physical and chemical properties, changes of matter. The students will also explore ionic and covalent bonding and chemical reactions, and they will also learn how to balance those chemical reactions based on the law of the conservation of mass. The students will also build upon their physical science vocabulary bank with many new words and concepts. Many of these words and concepts are listed here. In addition to the terms and concepts already mentioned, the students will be able to explore melting and boiling points of substances. They will also discover acids, bases, density, volume, length, shape, conductivity, malleability, and luster. They will also be able to identify the different phases of substances, which are solid, liquid, and gas. The students will also be able to discover the concept of an alloy and be able to create an alloy of their own in an activity. Many of our beloved superheroes from the DC and Marvel universe have used physical and chemical properties of matter in order to become stronger when they are faced by their enemies. Even though Batman and Iron Man are from different universes, they still use the same type of physical science in order to become stronger. Iron Man and Batman both use suits that were created from metal alloys. Metal alloys are a type of compound that is formed from a chemical change through the bonding of pure metal substances to create a new form of metal. This combination of metal has stronger physical properties, which can help these heroes fight their evil enemies and create a better environment for their communities. So how will the students be able to bring this theme into the classroom? One of the activities that the students will be completing during this unit is to create a super suit that they think will be very strong like the superheroes that they may read about or watch on television. The students will create their suit with a compound based on the physical and chemical properties of the pure substances that they combine to create their own alloy. The students will be able to draw an accurate image of their compound using proper bonding techniques. The students will also need to give their compound a unique name. For example, the compound that Batman used for his metal suit is commonly called Batmanium. In addition, students who provide a balanced chemical equation for the creation of their compound will receive a bonus point. The supersuit that they create can be used creatively in their comic strip for math. One of the unit character principles that the students will be exploring is respect. So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law of the prophets from Matthew 7:12. Superheroes create an environment that builds respect between the members of the community. For example, Spider-Man shows kindness to the members of his neighborhood. He treats others how he wants to be treated, which is what respect is all about.
So following respect, the second character trait is integrity. Superheroes have to have integrity. With their great power, they have to do what's right even when no one is watching. People with integrity walk safely, but those who follow crooked paths will slip and fall. Proverbs 10:9, New Living Translation. Next is courage. All superheroes have courage to go into the unknown and fight. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand. Isaiah 41:10, NIV. Lastly, faith. He replied, because you have so little faith. Truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. New International Version. We have that same power, as strong as any superhero. If we have faith in God, we can move mountains.